A grand hotel ballroom glittered under 1,000 crystal lights. The air was thick with laughter, champagne bubbles, and the faint sound of a jazz band tuning up in the background. Executives in sharp suits mingled with their partners in flowing gowns. The company's annual charity gala was in full swing, a celebration of success, status, and power. In the far corner, Ethan Miller, the janitor, quietly pushed his cleaning cart, keeping his eyes low. His gray uniform was spotless, though his shoes had seen better days. Every movement was careful, respectful. He knew his place here, invisible. Ethan wasn't just a janitor, he was a single father struggling to make ends meet. Every dollar he earned went toward his son's school fees and their small apartment. Tonight, he had volunteered to work late so he could earn a few extra hours of pay, money that would help buy his son, Noah, a used keyboard for Christmas. He wiped down a glass door near the stage when he heard laughter behind him. A group of young executives, half-drunk and arrogant, lounged at a nearby table. One of them, Ryan, a sharp-tongued man in his 30s, noticed Ethan polishing the edge of the grand piano on stage. "Hey, look at that," Ryan sneered. "Our janitor's treating the piano like it's his baby." Laughter followed. Ethan froze for a second, forcing a polite smile, trying to brush it off. But Ryan wasn't done. "Tell me, Ethan," he continued, raising his voice so the crowd could hear, "you ever play that thing, or you just clean it?" The table roared with laughter. Heads turned toward Ethan. The music from the band stopped, even the chatter dimmed. The janitor looked up, caught in the sudden spotlight of mockery. He stammered, "And no, sir. I just keep it polished." "Oh, come on," another executive joined in. "Why don't you show us what you've got? Maybe we'll start calling you Maestro of the Mops." More laughter. Ethan's throat tightened. His palms began to sweat. He looked toward the exit, wishing he could just disappear. Then a deep voice interrupted the laughter. "Let him play." The crowd turned. Mr. Graham, the CEO, had spoken. He was in his early 60s, a man whose presence demanded quiet. He wasn't laughing, he looked genuinely curious. Ryan smirked, whispering to his friends, "Oh, this'll be good." Ethan hesitated, heart pounding. He looked down at his calloused hands, the same hands that scrubbed floors every night, the same hands that once played lullabies to his late wife, Clara, who had been a music teacher before she died. He took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he approached the piano. The ballroom fell silent. The lights dimmed slightly, leaving Ethan under a soft spotlight. Every eye was on him, judgmental, amused, expectant. He sat down on the bench, his reflection shimmering on the glossy black surface of the grand piano. He placed his fingers gently on the keys. They felt familiar, comforting, even after years of silence. For a moment, he closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw Clara, sitting beside him like she used to, smiling softly. He could almost hear her whisper, "Play, Ethan, for us." Then, the first note rang out. Soft, pure, fragile as glass. The melody began slow, hesitant, like a man finding his way back home after being lost for years. The audience, expecting a clumsy mess, grew still. Ethan's fingers moved with grace and confidence that no one expected. The notes swirled into a hauntingly beautiful tune, weaving through the room like smoke. It wasn't flashy, it was emotional. Pain and love flowed from every chord. The music spoke of sleepless nights, of a father's struggle, of dreams buried under exhaustion and dust. A woman near the front wiped her eyes. The CEO leaned forward, eyes glistening. The arrogant laughter that once filled the hall was gone, replaced by an aching silence. As Ethan played on, images flickered through his mind, tucking Noah into bed, fixing Clara's favorite photo frame, mopping empty hallways while the world slept. His soul was pouring out through the piano. He hit a high note, clear, soaring, and then descended into a slow, tearful finale. When the last note faded, the silence that followed was deafening. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, applause. Loud, genuine, thunderous. The same people who mocked him moments ago were now on their feet. Even the CEO was clapping, slowly, with visible emotion. Ethan stood, dazed, his heart still racing. He didn't know what to do, bow, smile, leave. His eyes darted to the back of the hall, where he saw a small figure standing near the door. It was Noah. His son had come to wait for him as always, small backpack on his shoulders, eyes wide and shining with pride. Ethan's lips trembled. For the first time in years, he felt seen. The CEO rose from his table and approached the stage. The crowd parted respectfully. When he reached Ethan, he extended a hand. "That was extraordinary, Mr. Graham said softly. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Ethan swallowed hard. His voice broke as he answered, "From my wife, sir. She taught me. Before she passed away." Mr. Graham nodded slowly. "She must be very proud." Ethan's eyes glistened as he glanced again toward Noah. "I hope she is." The CEO placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You reminded us tonight that music isn't about perfection, it's about heart." "Thank you, Ethan." As the applause swelled again, Ethan stepped down from the stage, no longer just a janitor in the crowd's eyes, but a man who had reminded them all what true beauty sounded like. The ballroom lights glimmered like stars against the marble floors. The echo of Ethan's final note still hung in the air, lingering like the memory of something sacred. People were still standing, applauding, whispering in awe. Ethan stood by the piano, eyes lowered, unsure where to look. His hands trembled, not from nerves anymore, but from the overwhelming wave of emotion crashing over him. He had played for Clara. He had played for Noah. And somehow, he had played for every soul in that room. Cut to Mr. Graham, the CEO, slowly making his way through the crowd. The applause softened as he approached, the sound replaced by curious silence. He stopped in front of Ethan, looking at him with a mixture of respect and astonishment. "Where did you learn to play like that, Mr. Graham asked, his voice quiet but carrying across the room. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. He swallowed hard before replying, his voice soft, fragile. "My wife, Clara, she used to be a music teacher." He paused, glancing at the piano, running his fingers lightly over the keys as if they were sacred. "She taught me everything I know. We used to play together every night. She said music was the way our hearts spoke when words couldn't." The crowd listened, motionless. You could hear a pin drop. Even Ryan, the executive who had mocked him, stared at the floor, guilt written across his face. Ethan continued, his voice trembling. "After she passed away, I couldn't touch the piano again. It hurt too much. Every note reminded me she wasn't there to sing along." A murmur of sympathy rippled through the audience. Ethan's eyes glistened as he looked up. "But tonight, when you asked me to play, something told me she'd want me to. Maybe she was here, somehow." Mr. Graham's expression softened. The older man's jaw tightened, emotion flickering behind his calm exterior. He had lost someone once too, his wife, years ago, and the pain in Ethan's words struck deep. Then, from the back of the hall, a small voice called out, "Dad." Heads turned. Standing in the doorway was Noah, clutching his small backpack, his cheeks flushed. He looked shy but proud, his wide brown eyes locked on his father. Ethan's breath caught. "Noah," he whispered. The boy ran up, weaving between the tables, until he reached his father's side. The crowd smiled, the mood lightening just a little. Ethan knelt beside his son, brushing his hair back. "You saw me play." Noah nodded eagerly. "I heard everything. You played Mom's song." Ethan's heart twisted at the words. Tears welled up in his eyes. He hugged his son tightly, whispering, "Yeah, buddy. I played it for her. And for you." The CEO watched silently, visibly moved. The sight of the janitor and his boy, surrounded by millionaires who had been humbled by pure emotion, was a moment no one there would ever forget. Ethan looked up at the CEO again. "Sir," he said quietly, "I'm sorry if I caused any trouble." "I didn't mean to." Mr. Graham raised a hand, stopping him. "You caused no trouble, Ethan. You reminded us of something this company, and maybe this whole world, tends to forget." He looked around at the audience, his tone suddenly firm. "Talent isn't defined by status. Inspiration doesn't come from a title. It comes from people like him, people who live, who love, and who lose, yet still find the courage to keep going." A hush swept over the ballroom. Even the waiters stopped moving. Ryan, still red-faced with shame, stood slowly. He cleared his throat. "Ethan," he said awkwardly, I owe you an apology. That was out of line. What you did tonight, it was incredible." Ethan smiled faintly, nodding. "Thank you, sir." The crowd began to clap again, not the polite kind, but the heartfelt applause that comes when people recognize true beauty. Some guests even wiped their eyes discreetly. Then Mr. Graham turned to Ethan once more. "Do you have a piano at home?" Ethan shook his head. "No, sir. My wife's old one was sold to pay medical bills. My boy's been asking to learn, but," he hesitated, embarrassed, "I can't afford a new one." Not even a keyboard yet. The CEO's gaze softened even more. And yet you still played like that. He turned slightly, addressing the crowd. That right there, that's real strength. Ethan lowered his eyes, humbled. Noah tugged his father's sleeve, whispering, "Dad, did they like it?" Ethan smiled, brushing a tear away. "Yeah, son, I think they did." Laughter broke through the tension. The atmosphere changed, warm, inspired, human. The band's pianist, who had been quietly watching, approached Ethan and said sincerely, "Sir, if you ever want to play again, this stage is yours." The CEO nodded in agreement. "Yes, Ethan, you've earned that right." Ethan didn't know what to say. He simply nodded, voice trembling with gratitude. "Thank you, all of you." Cut to. Later that night, the ballroom emptied. The last of the guests had gone home, and only a few staff remained. Ethan was back in his janitor uniform, collecting glasses and folding napkins. But something had changed. The air around him felt lighter, the silence filled with possibility. He walked past the grand piano one last time. The same piano that had been his moment of redemption. He paused, resting a hand on its smooth surface, whispering quietly, "Thank you, Clara, I felt you tonight." Behind him, Mr. Graham watched from the doorway. He didn't interrupt, he simply smiled, quietly deciding something in his mind. The next day dawned gray and rainy, the kind of morning that made the world feel slower, softer. Inside the towering glass building, the janitorial floor buffer hummed quietly as Ethan Miller mopped the marble tiles. His reflection shimmered on the floor, a man humble yet changed. He still couldn't believe what had happened the night before. The applause, the tears, the CEO's words, it all felt like a dream he might wake up from. Yet his heart carried the memory like a gentle tune that refused to fade. The lobby was unusually empty for a weekday morning. The front desk receptionist smiled mysteriously as Ethan passed. "Morning, Ethan," she said, hiding a grin. "Mr. Graham asked to see you in the lobby around 8. Ethan frowned slightly, glancing at the clock. 7:55 a.m. "Me, are you sure?" "Positive," she said, tapping her headset. "He said he has something to show you." Ethan's stomach twisted with nervous curiosity. CEOs didn't usually call janitors for meetings. He ran a hand over his hair, suddenly aware of the bleach stains on his uniform. He pushed his cleaning cart toward the center of the lobby, and froze. There, standing beneath the morning light that poured through the glass roof, was a brand new grand piano. Its black surface gleamed like polished obsidian. A golden ribbon wrapped around it, bow-tied perfectly at the lid. A small card rested on the keys. Ethan's breath hitched. He approached slowly, almost afraid to touch it, afraid it might disappear. The tag read in elegant handwriting, "Greater than, to Ethan and Noah, for reminding us what real harmony sounds like." Mr. Graham. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. His hands trembled as he ran his fingers along the piano's smooth edge. The scent of new wood and varnish filled the air, sharp and sweet. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed. "Do you like it?" a familiar voice asked. Ethan turned. Mr. Graham, the CEO, stood near the elevators, holding 2 cups of coffee. His expression carried that same calm kindness from the night before. "Sir, I don't know what to say," Ethan stammered. Mr. Graham smiled. "Then don't. Just play." Ethan blinked, unable to speak. This can't be for me. I can't accept." "Ethan," the CEO interrupted gently, setting the coffees on the piano. "You gave us something priceless last night. You reminded a room full of wealthy people that music, real music, comes from the soul, not a price tag. It's only fair we give something back." Ethan swallowed hard. "But, sir, this piano, it must have cost." Mr. Graham cut him off with a wave. "Don't worry about that. Think of it as an investment, not in business, but in heart." Ethan's lips trembled. "Thank you, I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do, Mr. Graham said firmly. "You deserve far more than what this company's ever paid you." At that moment, the lobby doors swung open. A small voice shouted, "Dad." Noah came running in, backpack bouncing, his sneakers squeaking on the marble. He stopped dead in front of the piano, jaw dropping. "Whoa, is this ours?" Ethan knelt, tears in his eyes. "It is, buddy, it really is." Noah squealed with joy, tracing the piano's keys with tiny fingers. "Can we play, Dad? Please?" Ethan looked at the CEO, who nodded with a soft smile. "Go ahead." Ethan sat on the bench beside his son. The morning sunlight streamed through the glass walls, bathing them in gold. He pressed the first key, a clear, bright note that filled the lobby. Noah joined in, pressing another, then another. A melody began to form, simple, innocent, pure. Father and son laughed softly as they played together, their fingers dancing clumsily but joyfully across the keys. The music drifted upward, echoing through the empty halls like a prayer. Cut to Mr. Graham watching from a few steps away. For a moment, he wasn't a CEO. He was just a man remembering his own daughter, who used to play piano before illness took her. His eyes shone with quiet tears he didn't bother to hide. He approached Ethan again, holding an envelope. "There's something else," he said gently. Ethan turned, puzzled. He took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a letter on company stationery. He began to read aloud, voice shaking. Greater than, effective immediately, Ethan Miller is promoted to event music coordinator. Salary increase and flexible hours provided. Additionally, a full scholarship has been granted for Noah Miller to attend the Harmony Youth Music Academy, sponsored by the company. Ethan froze. His mouth opened but no words came out. "Sir, I can't, this is too much." Mr. Graham placed a hand on his shoulder. "You earned every bit of it. And your boy, he deserves a chance to grow up surrounded by music, not struggle." Noah jumped up, hugging the CEO around the waist. "Thank you, sir," he said innocently. Mr. Graham laughed, patting the boy's head. "You're welcome, young man. Make your dad proud, and keep making music." The janitor who once swept floors now stood in the center of the building as its newest musician. Employees walking in for work stopped, watching with smiles and quiet awe. Some began clapping. Ethan, overwhelmed, turned back to the piano. "Clara," he whispered under his breath, "we did it." He sat again beside his son, starting a gentle, emotional tune. The melody rose through the lobby, rich, soulful, filled with love. Mr. Graham stood back, eyes closed, letting the music wash over him. For a brief, beautiful moment, everything, wealth, titles, pain, disappeared. There was only the music. Montage, soft piano playing under. Ethan teaching Noah scales at home on their new piano. Noah performing at his music school recital, smiling at his father in the audience. Mr. Graham attending, clapping proudly from the front row. Ethan cleaning the company halls at night, humming the same melody that changed his life. Fade to lobby, evening. The building glowed with sunset light. Ethan finished his shift, but before leaving, he sat once more at the piano in the lobby. He played a soft lullaby, Clara's song. The notes floated gently through the empty space, wrapping around him like her memory. Behind him, the CEO's voice echoed softly, "Beautiful, Ethan. Absolutely beautiful." Ethan smiled without turning around. "Just keeping my promise, sir." The CEO nodded, emotion in his voice. "In reminding us all, that every person, no matter their uniform, has a symphony inside them."